Remy, what the hell is going on with Project Redline?
Where do I start?
I've had a few comments on YouTube.
Yes.
Hasn't been an episode for a while.
There hasn't. My fault, probably. Guess like we said at the start of the episode, this series, we're going to stop concentrating on customers' cars and things like that and really get knuckle down and building our own car for once. You can only do that for so long before it stops paying the bills, so it's back to doing stuff for customers, making hoses, building cars and things like that. So that's what we've been doing the last few months. We haven't had the car out much at all, unfortunately. Also, life gets in the way too, so you've got work and family and all that kind of stuff, and if they don't marry up to the day that you got to go racing, you just don't go racing, unfortunately. So biggest changes, I guess, Project Redline I can run over now is probably one of the biggest ones. If you look down here, we ran the car a couple of times down at Heathcote with, and on the dyno you would have seen with the Series 4 engine, which is this here. In the meantime, we had a customer of ours basically approach us looking for a race engine, and the easiest thing for us was to say, we got this one. It's proven. It's dyno and track proven that we ran. We
did run it though after their first episode. It ran 11.1. We did take it back.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, this engine went down. I mean, I'm not sure if something tripped the beams or if it rocked through just when it hit the trans brake. But the data with the Microtech basically says what we ran. We know it ran really low 10. Like it ran like a 10.1 still on very low boost, but we don't have a time slip for it, so we're not going to claim that that's the time we run. But
so basically, I think the exhaust might have been rebounding against the wall and tripping the 60 foot. We're getting like 3.5 seconds 60 foot when obviously we weren't creeping on the line. But
yeah, that's
we can't claim that.
No, that's right. Well, you'll have a look in the footage. It doesn't look like the car moves at all. Timer started, so what do? The data says exactly what it says, so we're happy with that. So yeah, the customer wanted an engine. We said, well, we've got this engine here, so why not pull that out and we can put that in his car. At the same time, we got poor old FDRX7 just sitting here. That's really, I mean, I think Jan 2015 was the last time I had this thing out, and we raced it at Winton, and it's a really, really good engine. It's FD engine, so it's got bigger ports. It's much meatier around the dowels. So we thought, why not just put this?
So it's quicker. It's quicker just to lift this engine out and throw it in the 626.
Yeah, I mean, because of how these engines mount. In that car, the sump pretty much bolted on. I changed the timing covers, and that was pretty much it. Put it in, and the only other changes then we had were the intake manifold. So if you want to go over here now, we'll take a bit of a closer look at what it looks like under here now. So of course, because they are a different intake manifold design, I had to run a different intake manifold, of course. So what we've got here is one from JW. It's a 4-barrel pattern. So we chose to stick with the 1000mm throttle body. We could have run with something like this, which is traditionally what you will see in many places, especially like a lot of the top line racers will use things like this. So this is a 1000 CFM, so to speak, quad throttle body. We could have run with that, but we just wanted to stick with the 100mm single throttle body that we had there. Yeah, and this is just something that ProFlow make that turns the 100mm throttle body, or I think it bolts up to an LS one as well. To like a 4150 flange. So if you've got a carby manifold or whatever, and you want to go from natural aspirated carby to an EFI throttle body, this is a really easy way to do it. So this just bolts on here to your normal carby sort of base plate, and then you've got off to a EFI single throttle body there. So that's all we've done. We had to make a minor modification to the intercooler pipe, which we did. Bolt that on. Everything else is still the same.
Same turbo.
Yeah. So. Still got the same turbo, everything else is there. So one of the other main changes we made was fuel injectors. So on the dyno we had one set of primary injectors that were a bit different. We haven't used a lot of. We do all R&D stuff on our own car, so if something goes wrong, it comes out of our own pocket. So with Bosch Indy injectors, which is a very reliable sort of injector, 1600, 1700cc. They're very, very hard to find. They were discontinued as far as I was aware at one stage as well. So for our customers' cars that run ethanol and street cars where we need like 1700 or so cc injectors, we wanted to test some new injectors out there to see how they react. Now, when it comes to rotary stuff, when you're running castor oil in the fuel, it's very, very different than just running normal fuel by itself. So we've had many instances where injectors, and there's lots of cases where good quality injectors out there are run fine on ethanol or methanol or whatever with other people, and then the rotary guys always seem to have trouble. And all I can tie it back to is the fact that we put oil in our fuel. We had those 1400cc injectors, and I saw a big disparity between front and rear EGT, which for my mind was an injector issue, because everything else was fine. So we put them on the bench, and that there was a bit of I don't know if maybe there's something in them, but they were flowing differently, just those primary ones. So we took those out and we put a different set of injectors in them. They were this little thing here. This was also, I believe it was, I don't know if it's a Bosch one or if it's a copy of a Bosch one or whatever, but we put those in, and they were said to have stainless internals and be fine on E85. These things on the flow bench were meant to be 1400cc. We put these up against an Indy and an Indy on our flow bench over here at the same sort of time and setup we run. An Indy flows up around here around the 80 mark. These injectors ended up flowing after they were filled with like ethanol and castor oil with a bit of heat and went down to 10. So clearly these also just do not perform under ethanol and castor oil and then a heat being
so is
put
that
into
what
the
you
mix.
had in it when we took it to the track?
So this has been our issues at the last few times I've been at the track, whereas the tune-up was fine, and we did essentially one pass, and then
so we ran a really we just did a test pass, and it ran 1050 like pretty easy.
Yeah, it ran 1050, 126, 127 I think, but it
fell over pretty bad.
It struggled to even put on 20 mile an hour in the back end of the track, and it was lazy and it was really rich. By the time we'd come back to the return road, the car had basically stalled. We had to put in something like 70% plus on the mix trim just to drive the car back to the pits, and it wouldn't rev up properly. And I initially thought the engine's blowing up or something. There's something mechanically wrong with it. And then we got the car home, take the injectors out, put them through the test machine, cleaned them out, everything's cooled down. A couple of days later, put it back in, and car fired up fine. Engine compression's like 110 plus, nice even pulses, nothing wrong with it. So again, those injectors are just no chops. We've located some Indies, new stock, and we've put those in. And the second we put Indies in, I've got tune-ups for Indies that we've always used over the years. I put the numbers in that I know I have to. Literally just tickle the starter motor, and the thing just fires up and idles perfectly. So I think finally a lot of that stuff, it's funny, I always say to customers, don't mess around, don't take chances, do what works, and I basically did the opposite. But I mean, it's my car, and that's why I've done it. Like, I mean, how shit would I feel basically if I'd put those injectors in a customer's car and he had an engine failure or something, because when we go and tune it on the dyno it gives one result, then he's out cruising or something, and then it's beat, and it gets affected by heat in the castor oil and stands at it and blows up an engine because I've sold him an injector that I've said is fine. So that's the reason why we do R&D like this. There's a lot of misinformation out on the internet. People see things that says they're suited to ethanol and things like that, but it's a different kettle of fish with this once you mix castor oil, from what I've found. Start it, but we wouldn't be able to breathe within about 3 seconds, so we're not going to do that. And the only other change we've really made is you might see this sensor here. So while the car was sort of off and waiting for the engines to turn up, I was really interested to see what kind of exhaust back pressure would be in this system based on the smaller exhaust housing we were running. That affects the tune of the car quite a bit too. So what we've done here is we've just put a sensor with some 3/16" brake line. It comes out here and it coils around here. And that's just to take a bit of the heat out of the higher exhaust temperatures that are coming out here, and it runs down here, and then just here is a Microtech, I think 0 to 100 or 150 or so PSI sensor. And what that'll do, that'll be able to, that goes back to our Microtech dash to data log the exhaust back pressure. So what we're looking for is a relationship of what ratio of manifold pressure versus exhaust back pressure. So we can look at that, and if we're finding that the exhaust back pressure is far too high versus manifold pressure, it's probably time to start looking at a bigger exhaust housing, because that will be hurting performance quite a lot. So that'll be interesting to see how the results there. Only other real change we made to the car, which has helped it quite a lot. In some of the videos you might have seen the car take off, and you've probably seen other cars with just your normal sway bar rear ends, that they really stand the front left corner of the car up and the right rear bogs down. So there's cars, you always see things like pretty common Cortinas and even older Holdens like HQs. You'll see them really lift that front and drag the back for a long time out of the hole. That hurts 60 foot time, there's no doubt about it. So you want to plant both of the rear wheels evenly on the ground as hard as you can possibly can. So this is your normal sort of sway bar and while sway bars are great, economical, cheap for everyday sort of road cars, if I put this in, if I sort of put this in here, you'll see that I can basically bend that bar, can't I?
Yeah.
So you can see the play in that. So once you've got the mechanical forces that are going to the back of this to try and plant both wheels on the ground in a drag car, that shock of like a trans brake, you can see that this isn't going to do its job at all.
No.
So what we've done, come over here, is install what's called an anti-roll bar. So essentially we've just welded 2 plates in here, and reinforcement plate, and it's just a chrome ollie bar with some arms coming off here. I've got some rod ends in there, and if we go under there, under here on the back end of the car, you'll see up here that those arms come down and attach directly to the diff on both sides up the top. And what that means is, there is not going to be any more movement. These arms are rock solid essentially, so one side of the car is going to react exactly the same as the other, but we can also, because these are on rod ends, we can actually put in preload into the car. So if we're still finding that it's slightly squatting from one side to the rear, we can do a couple of turns on one side, and that should really even out. So you'll probably see in the video when we ran it last time, there's a big improvement on how the car got out of the hole. So 60 foot time, because it was a pretty soft tune up last time in it, and it was very rich, but the 60 foot time was quicker than we'd ever done before, and it launched much even. So I mean, if we can compare the video side by side of how we raced in, I think, mid last year versus when we last raced it in just before sort of December, you see a big difference in how it reacted. Next step's just to get out there and race again. So we're hoping to get out to Heathcote soon. We were looking to get in early March, but that event's been, that test and tune's just been cancelled now, so we've got to go back to the drawing board, and we've got Jamboree coming up, so we'll be out at Jamboree, not racing obviously, but we're going to be covering that event for you guys. After that, I think it's Easter on one weekend, so it's starting to already,
long story short, we're not going to have this out for maybe 6 or 8 weeks.
Probably not.
Yeah.
It still isn't teched, and I mean, I don't want to go to Calder Park where it's much busier and much less, it's much more intense, so to speak, in terms of getting your car in the staging lanes, and there's a lot more cars there, so I don't want to take it to the big dog sort of track until the car's sorted. So with the new injectors and that, I either need to probably need to go to the dyno and sort it out again, or just go to the racetrack and just spend 5 or 6 passes where I can get consistency in it and just chase the tune up and get it to where it needs to be. So unfortunately, the next time out, it's probably not going to run anything special again. The next meet out, it's probably going to be just a test and tune again to really dial in, and then the meet after that is the one where we will really start feeding the boost that we know it can produce, and hopefully it'll start running the numbers that we really want to see out of it. So, yeah, long story short, unfortunately, probably still another 8 weeks away before we get out there again. So, the only other thing I think it needs to do before it gets teched is this, and this is like a big ballistics blanket for the transmission. So
you don't leave trans fluid and parts all down the
it's
track?
not so much the trans fluid. Yeah, it's more the fact that if it explodes, it's not going to take off my leg.
Take off your leg.
So I can see it wearing like my race shoes today. But we have the race boots in there.
Put your work boots on.
They're my work boots, mate. This is if it explodes, you've only got 1.5 mil, 2 mil of steel here between you and something travelling at 8,000 RPM pointed directly at your foot. Next steps for the car after we get it all sorted, I don't know. I mean, we're still pushing where we want to push with E85. I'm not sure if I ever want to take this car to the next level. I mean, the Jatco is a really, really good box for what we want to do. To take any sort of car on this sort of tyre to the next level, you're looking at methanol, probably like a much bigger ignition system and that. So there's probably another, there'd be another $3,000 to $4,000 worth of stuff to be spent on it. But the biggest cost would be the gearbox, because realistically, I mean, if we wanted to stay auto, you probably have to look at a turbo 400 to run somewhere in the, into the mid to low 8s or something like that. So the turbo's still pretty well. I mean, in an upcoming episode of something we've got filmed, you'll see that a couple of friends of ours have pushed the GD42 on their little Datsun on methanol into, I think they've run 165 plus mile an hour in 830. So this turbo is still capable of doing what we want to do, and the engine is. But really, in this car, that Hilux diff and the transmission are probably rated to exactly what the sort of goal, the end goal of this car is, and run that 90 mid 140 mile an hour.
We're not trying to reinvent the wheel though, Bruno. We just want to have some fun.
No, exactly. So we want to get out there and just keep it reliable. So, and that's what the plan for this car is. So, and that's all it ever was, which is why the entire combo we've got here is perfect for us. Much distant future is probably something for this poor old bastard, because
it's got a bit dusty, man.
There's a lot of junk in here. If anyone wants
your storage? Is this your storage cupboard?
Anyone wants to buy a near brand new Borg-Warner S366 turbo, an exhaust manifold and wastegate to suit an FD-RX-7, message me, because it's just sitting there doing nothing, and I'd rather it be on someone else's car than sitting here doing nothing there. So I've got a full V-mount setup that's been built with this, with Davies Craig water pump.
We'll get it out there one day.
We will. Yeah, we definitely will do something with it. So whether we end up transplanting some of the stuff out of this into here, or whether it just becomes something totally different. And
I want to see you build a fast IRS car.
That doesn't sound like a good plan at all. I don't want to be picking up pieces from the bloody
manual IRS. What could go wrong?
Yeah, that's right. Len Bacon is doing big things with his FD-RX-7 with the IRS rear, with I think pretty sure it's got a Liberty in it, which is unbelievable. I'm not sure if it's still a factory FD IRS rear. I don't know. It's probably got like an 8.8.
It's pretty awesome to watch.
Yeah, that's a killer car. It's so great. Seeing that in person at World Cup Finals a couple of years ago was a great thing. But yeah, I really like the auto in terms of drag racing. They're very consistent, very easy to manage. So if I build anything, it'll probably be that again. But I guess it really just depends on what you want to see. I mean, do you want to see us build another car? Do you want to see us do something with this? What engine should it have?
What engine? An LS fits in a FD pretty good.
Right, I'll be hanging from one of these rafters if I ever put an LS in one of these cars in here, but who knows? I mean, maybe. I mean, is there any reason why we can't put a Barra in it or an LS or something? Don't know. So it'll depend, I guess, on something that a lot of people in the comments seem to get butthurt over, but support from sponsors. I mean, realistically, if all this has come out of my budget to build this car, it costs an absolute truckload of money. I mean, this is, multiple tens of thousands of dollars sitting in this car, and then to film it and everything on top of that. And, you have a look at the money that advertisers would spend on magazine advertising to get 1/10 of the reach that, that a channel like this can provide. it's a partnership agreement between us and suppliers for advertising. So it's not that we're sponsored and getting free parts. I really hate that term when people say, oh, you've done this because you get free this or you've got free that. I mean, we've paid for a lot of this, and yes, we did get a lot of it for no cost, but in return, the people that have supported us with these products have got great coverage for their brands to hundreds of thousands of people, Australia and internationally wide, that that they would have had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get in a print magazine. So I don't ever look at this stuff as we're getting stuff for free, but people just seem to get so butthurt in the comments.
I've probably spent $100,000 in camera equipment in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
people don't look at that. Oh.
Yeah, the amount of time that it took to build this car in terms of hours and that, and then all the time, double that to edit all the videos and then upload it and all the stuff like that. People are just like, oh, you got that for free. Like, it's just, if someone...
The funny thing is, they say that, right, but then if you turn around and say, hey, do you want this turbo for nothing?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't want that.
No. Why would I want something great like that from a reputable company for free? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's like, just be happy that, like, doing content, you guys are loving it. I'm more than happy to sit there and watch your videos of you building stuff too. Do it. Don't just sit there in the comment section and just complaining about everything. Get up there and start creating stuff, and I'll watch it gladly. I watch so much stuff on the internet.
I watch heaps of build projects.
For me, YouTube is like is number one for me. Before, don't worry about pay TV or Netflix or anything like that. YouTube is my number one go-to avenue for absorbing content on the internet. So if you're out there building something and you got cars or whatever, put it in the comments too. I'd love to see it. But stop whinging. just stop complaining about what everyone else is doing, worrying about everyone else's life, and just focus on what you're doing. Get out there and start creating content. We'd love to see it. But not sure. I think our number one goal is just to get this out as soon as we possibly can and have some fun with it. And then hopefully you guys like what you see, and we can keep on building other fun cars for you guys to watch. So.
All right, I think that's it, Broomy.
Definitely.
All right, signing off.
We'll get back to building more braided hoses over here. Catch you next time.